All right, sorry for the interruption there. I'm uploading this as two videos now. I got family going on here and had to pause for a moment there. Okay, so anyway, deporting people around, that's one thing. You can also move people in the other direction, and this sort of comes naturally out of conquest. You can, once you conquer a place, you can leave soldiers behind as a garrison. You can leave a governor behind or an overseer of the local leadership to make sure they continue obeying you. One interesting example, this will get into religion that we'll talk about a bit later. Sargon of Akkad takes his daughter and makes her the high priestess of a local Inanna temple. Inanna is a goddess of a local temple down in Sumeria. And that way he's got a very powerful, wealthy, prestigious local institution where he can guarantee the loyalty of the person running the place because it's his own daughter. So, planting your own people there is also a way of doing this. Okay, so that's one measure. Again, people don't necessarily like getting deported from their homes, and they don't necessarily feel all that excited about welcoming newcomers getting transplanted into their midst, but still that's a measure you can do towards trying to shift the population around, at least the leading elements of the population, and try to manipulate that in a way that's going to make people more loyal to you. Okay, now a third tool that you can use to try and build a sense of imagined community and hold these empires together is you can use writing. Writing had emerged relatively early along with cities themselves. Priestly classes are using them. Sumeria develops the world's oldest writing system. It's called cuneiform, which is a word that means wedge-shaped writing. When archaeologists started discovering cuneiform, what it is you get a wet clay tablet where the clay is still, moldable, is not hardened yet, and you get a stick, a stylus, that has a shape like a wedge at the end. It's not just a stick, but it's sort of shaped at the end a certain way. And then by turning and poking the stylus into the wet clay, you could create these various patterns in it and thus create a writing system going across that, right? So this is and then you leave the clay out to dry in the sun or bake it in a kiln, and you wind up with all hard and permanent, and you've got your written record preserved. Cuneiform probably first started getting used as a kind of a record keeping, just sort of the temple granaries, trying to keep track of the storehouses, trying to keep track of the inventory and what was there, but gradually becomes more and more sophisticated, and the writing you can do with it becomes more and more sophisticated. So writing is really important because if you think about it, writing is magic. Writing is really astonishing. Normally, you can only hear a person communicate when they talk, and if you are in their presence listening to them talk, right? That's natural humanity. A king might send a messenger to talk on his behalf, but then you're only hearing the king's message when the messenger is talking. But writing does two things simultaneously. It takes speech and makes it permanent, right? Wow, normally speech, you speak and then the word goes away and is done and gone and no one's speaking anymore, right? Until somebody says something else. But writing can take speech, can commit it to something permanent. You keep a permanent record of things, including what your inventory is or what tribute or taxes people owe, or reminding them of the story of why you got to rule them in the first place. And not only that, not only does it make speech permanent, but it also makes absent people's speech present, right? You can see and read a person's words even when the person themselves aren't there, right? Now, in a tangible community, the king lives in the city where his palace is, but in a larger empire, the king can't be living everywhere at once, can't be looking over everything directly himself at once all the time, but through writing, he can make his will known, can send messages, can make his voice heard in places where he himself is not able to be present, right? That's huge, that's enormous. In our days of the internet and such, of course, here I am posting a video lecture. I'm not present with you, but you're able to hear my voice. We take all this for granted, but if it's 2000, 2300 BC, the idea that, we've got a proclamation from the king and it's permanently inscribed on the wall of a temple or the gates of the city, and any person, in the scribal class at least, who could read it out loud to everybody else, anybody can read what it says and be reminded of what the king's word is or receive a message from the king like that. That's really huge towards getting people to think of themselves not just belonging to their tangible communities, but also belonging to this bigger thing, this bigger empire. That's very important. And then there's one other thing you can do with writing, which will count as sort of a new category of its own. We talked about violence, we talked about transplanting people, we talked about writing, so I guess this becomes a fourth element in a way, although it's related to writing, and that's law. The king can make law, he can set up law courts, he can set up judges. Now, you've had laws, presumably, we're pretty sure you have, in law courts all along. Kings have been kind of responsible for settling disputes and making laws to judge disputes between people within their own tangible communities, but you can also create written law, right? Write down the law, make the law permanent, not just the king's judgment at any given moment. And again, by creating written law, you can give law to the people of your empire, even outside of your own home base city, right? So there's another way that the law serves the imagined community of building the sense of a larger empire. And law is really important, really important, because people get into disputes, right? People get into arguments. People have disagreements with each other, where they feel that somebody has done them wrong or cheated them out of something, or harmed them somehow. Law is a way to settle those disputes. If you feel that you've been wronged, the law gives you an avenue, other than just going and taking vengeance yourself, gives you a law to get justice, to get what's coming to you restored, or to punish the person who's done you wrong. By giving written law, by appointing judges to courts in the various cities of his empire, the king makes himself the third party in the dispute who's going to give justice, who's going to make things right. And that really can do a lot to reinforce a sense of loyalty, a sense of belonging, a sense of a desire to follow a king, because you can count on that king to give you those, to give you that justice, to give you that blessing, to make sure that your rights and your well-being are being looked after. Okay, so law, very, very, very important. And when you're reading Hammurabi's code for this section, we'll discuss it in some detail there. Pay attention especially to the introduction and conclusion of that text, and you can sort of see at an ideological level how Hammurabi, Babylonian ruler about 1800 AD, is using law for his political needs. Okay, so that's the fourth one, violence, transplanting people around, writing, law, and the last one is religion and ideology. And I'll talk more in detail about what exactly ideology means. But in the pre-modern world, right back to ancient times, like I mentioned last time, it's almost universal among human beings to feel that there is stuff going on in the universe that's beyond our control, and to assume it must be under somebody's control, and therefore to adopt some form or other of religiosity. The ancient Middle East is no exception. All these city-states have their gods, and over time, as you have more and more interaction between the city-states, you start building up a pantheon of gods, a sense that the heavens are inhabited by a kind of a royal court with all the various gods in there. Each of the deities is the patron, that's to say the protector and provider, the patron of a particular city. They have kind of their home city, that's where their headquarter temple is, so to speak, the main place that they're worshipped. What you can do with religion, as far as politics is concerned and rulers are concerned, is the ruler can make the claim that they get to rule because the gods have put them there, because they are the choice of the gods. They are favored by the gods, and their victory in battle, their ability to conquer, their succession to the throne is a sign of divine favor. And so what you see is the kings cultivate relationships with the temples. They protect the temples, they support the temples, and in turn, the temples give them legitimacy, right? So that's a very important element, the sense that the people will be loyal to you, will follow you, if they believe that you are, in fact, the person that the gods have chosen to be their ruler and their leader. And this can happen in various ways. One I was already describing was the way that Sargon of Akkad made his own daughter, a family member, priestess of the Temple of Inanna, a very influential southern Mesopotamian temple, in order to thereby extend his influence in that area. In Babylon, you have a tradition at the New Year, the Babylonian New Year, which they count in the springtime, not in January like we do. But you'd have the New Year festival, in which there'd be a great procession into the city. And the king and his nobles would start on the outside of the city. They would come in through the Ishtar gate, this great glorious gate with all these glazed blue tiles. And they would be met inside the gate by the priests in a delegation headed by the high priest of Marduk, who's the chief patron deity of the city. And the high priest would punch the king in the face and knock him down to his knees. This is sort of part of the gesture. But then after doing that, the high priest would take the king by his shoulders and raise him up, and then the two of them together would form a united procession which would go down the main avenue of the city to the great ziggurat, Ziggurat's a religious building. It's kind of shaped like a pyramid. It's meant to be an artificial mountain, is kind of what it is. The idea is the gods are up in the sky, they're up in the heavens. You want to go up to be as close to them as possible, so you go up to the top of the ziggurat. The ziggurat's different from the temple. The temple's kind of across the street from the ziggurat proper, but for these festival days, the procession goes up a staircase to the top of the ziggurat to complete the ceremonies there. So they're sort of representing, on the one hand, the king's dependency on the deity through the deity's representative, the priest, and their deity's power over the king to knock him down and judge him and hold him accountable, I suppose. But then also shows how the deity, through the priesthood, embraces the king, lifts him up, carries him forward, and raises him up to power and gives him favor. Right. So, very carefully choreographed ritual being done there to send a message of divine favor for the king. And again, when you look at Hammurabi's code, look for how Hammurabi talks about the gods in the introduction and conclusion there. Okay, so that's probably enough to cover for now. Hopefully gives you some sense of what's going on in ancient Mesopotamia. Like I say, we're not going to go through all the intense political details of which empire is rising and falling when, but that's enough of a sketch to get a basic picture of Mesopotamian culture and what's going on there in this sort of founding point of civilization. Thanks very much.